My name's Chris Lyans. I want to just tell my story real quick. I started a business called Homestead Abundance, and basically I lived in LA 3 years ago, and I worked in the health and nutrition industry, and I was just kind of burned out living in the city, and I knew I wanted to take my family and do something better, create a homestead, or I just kind of lacked focus and purpose in life. And so I'll just quickly run down my story about how we left the city and we started becoming farmers. And so, yeah, it was an amazing journey, but I didn't know where to start. Like, it was like, I started reading books on permaculture, and it was just like very overwhelming. There's just like so much to all the information that you can easily get distracted, and it's very hard to find your niche, very hard to find like what you're specifically into. So Homestead Abundance came out of helping people find their purpose within the myriad of all the different areas that you can get into as far as community. So I look at it from a community perspective a lot, whereas we're all trying to create kind of a new earth reality. We're all trying to create like this new kind of, we're trying to create something new, and we're all kind of going, well, what's my role in that? I know how I fit into this world right now. I know based off of these worldly metrics, what are the things that I offer and I can do to support myself, and how does that translate into what I want to do, and what is my passion. So a big impetus was based on living the life that you were meant to live instead of living the life that you think you're supposed to live because that's what the world tells you to do. So I was living in LA, and I was like, oh, babe, we got to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. I'm stressed out. I'm just like, she was working more of like the lion's share of the income. And so I was doing more of the stay-at-home dad, which was cool. We were making it work. But I didn't really feel like I wasn't really like doing what I wanted to do. I enjoy being with the kids, but I wasn't really happy in that life. And so just a quick backstory, my sister moved to Oregon. And she was like, you got to come up here, and it's awesome. And so my wife said, well, if Chris can find a job, if he can find a job up there, we'll do it. And within like a couple hours, I looked on organic farms in Oregon. I found one. And then within a month, I was moving the whole family up there. And so I did 3 years on an organic, pasture-based, regenerative style animal farm. Okay, so I was really like on the fence of like what kind of farming I wanted to do. Did I want to like do veggie farming, or I was also kind of ethically kind of pulled to like, I had been a vegan, I had been vegetarian, and I didn't. So I had the logic that if I'm going to eat meat, then I want to be intimately involved in the process, and so that made sense to me. Like, okay, all right, if I'm gonna do this, because at the time I was kind of vegetarian and I wasn't really sure, and it didn't really feel good, like going and buying meat from the store, and so it felt good. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and then going to work at the farm that I did, I got tons of experience on a lot of permaculture techniques where it's rotational grazing. So we were pulling nutrients from the animals and had them in sequence of, the chickens behind the beef and the sheep, and everything had, in rotational grazing, you're utilizing animals for fertility for the soil. So basically you're growing grass. You're out there and you're growing forages, so you're grass and herbs and all these things, and you're using the animals they have, in this particular farm, they had an overabundance of fertility. So that's my main like experience as far as like when I call it homesteading, but it has a myriad of definitions that each of us has within ourselves. So, for example, I say Homestead Abundance, I call this Homestead Abundance, and you might have a different definition of what you feel like is farming or caring for the land or permaculture. And so that's been a big part of my work, has been defining what it is we want and helping people find their purpose. So I've learned some techniques in the last couple months to help people get clarity around their purpose, and I focus that in the areas of homesteading. So it's defining what you want, and then it's kind of redefining it, taking a neuro-linguistic programming perspective, to where you take something and you understand where you're at and then where you want to be, and then using more metaphysical principles to align those new understandings with what you want. So let me come full circle to back in LA. I started to exercise some of these principles on myself and my family to change my life. I was living on the farm. We were doing human air, pooping in a bucket, and we were practicing a lot of principles. Learned so much. We were living in an intentional community as best they could. They're all kind of learning right now. There's a lot of community starting, and there's a lot of things that need to change for the better, and there's a lot we can do. So that's like one niche, right? Like that's one niche, is like someone who organizes community. So part of the risk that I took based off of this process that I was putting myself and my family through was to start this new business and leave the farm. And even though I was making a good income and still deriving a lot of satisfaction from my work, I was living a right livelihood, and I felt like I was providing food for people that was like the best as far as meat goes. Like if you're gonna provide meat to community, to the world, it should be organic. It should be regenerative. It should be the very highest quality, and give back to the earth instead of just everything else, which is extractive, right? Like you're saying, the agriculture right now is just extractive. Like it just takes, and we don't see a return on those. It's just like, how do we fix the problem? So my focus is more on helping people to kind of find what direction they're going. So I had an experience about a year ago, which I call encountering the God energy, or this entrance into miraculous light. And I searched and I looked for all kinds of examples of other people that they had this kind of, some had called it a Kundalini awakening. And I felt like that is kind of like that energy, that Kundalini kind of embodiment. Like I was fully present in my body, but I had this like exit out of the matrix. I had this like, boom, I'm somewhere else. And so in this space, I learned quite a bit. So I will bust out the whiteboard. I have a mini one right here. And I was shown this, I can use this, fine. I was shown this model of consciousness. So basically it's like a waveform technology to where consciousness is going like this. And then it spirals around and it goes up, and it keeps like the wave is going up and down. And we have these highs and lows, but it's constantly, going up. And within that, so like if you look at this is consciousness, big circly mess, right? Especially right now, the last couple years. We're kind of like right here, like we have this small kind of increment like this. If you look at it in time, maybe that's 10 years. But in that space, didn't feel like time is irrelevant. So in this tiny space is what we're dealing with. And it's like, okay, that's on the low part of the wave. And so then each of us inside of this model of consciousness has our own similar blueprint in there. So I started to understand how to kind of tap into my own. So through the process, about 3 months after that experience, I started to understand the work of Saul Luckman and potentiate your DNA. And in that, you use tuning forks and you use a kind of a chant like of syllables to kind of help you understand or kind of potentiate your DNA or genetic structure. So I started to do this work and kind of get more in tune with how does my unique energetic code fit into my life purpose, and how do I integrate that into the greater consciousness. So I started to sit in that space, and I started to then pull in and draw other modalities to help me further clarify and understand my unique frequency and how I can apply that into creating a homestead, or define that as, what do I really want to do? So I'm somewhere like I feel drawn to that idea of a homestead, to where I'm providing for my family. But there's all these other definitions that go with a homestead. Like when I started looking into it, it was like, oh, you're a homestead, that means you have to have animals, and you got to, I see all these different people are doing it different ways, and I don't really resonate with anyone in particular. I was like, I want to do it in the creative way that I want to express myself in the world. So by tuning into that frequency and writing down all the things that I wanted for myself and my family, I could then clarify exactly what I wanted to do. And so, so one of those things was to be in harmony with nature, right? And understand, like, and really listening to nature as to what I can do for it, and what it can, not necessarily what I became less interested in what nature can do for me. This is where I feel like if I'm just in the flow of the energy, then I know there's going to be a reciprocity. I'm not really worried about like, oh man, am I going to get the yield that I want? I think my personal take was that I wanted to share, it's a vision that Howdy McCoskey, author of a book I just finished reading called Exit the Cave, and in it he takes a Gnostic approach as far as like where we came from and why we're connected to nature, because I'm sure a lot of you feel like you feel this. You feel like if you know that if you go to nature, you feel really good, you feel really rejuvenated, you feel like there's a healing aspect, and often I wonder like, well, why is that? Because I know that through some of this process, like some of my process of understanding how to grow food and how to be a part of it came from energetic practices like qigong, and really connecting with the earth energy and the spirit energy and kind of combining them all. And it's like, well, why do I want to do that? Like I feel like a natural tendency to kind of want to move my body like in nature, like sway like the tree or whatever that is, like that we do. So he has a really interesting perspective in that his vision indicates that the demiurge, you may have heard, or like Satan, the evil kind of force, made the world. But nature made us. And this is the reason that the archons, or the negative influence that we all feel in the world, like stopping us from living our life's purpose, or the minions trying so hard to stop us and slow us down. Before the first humans were born, there were rocks, trees, plants, animals, water. One day they realized that for all there seemed freedom and peace. They were trapped in a type of loop. They saw what was needed to be done for all of them to gain their freedom, but they themselves, nature, could not accomplish that act. They had a meeting of what to do about it, and they asked Mother Sophia, or Mother Nature, depending on your perspective. She allowed nature to create a new being to help them to do what they could not. Nature created humans as the active force to open the freedom door for it. And to assist us, nature would be our guide. Nature created humans out of all the parts of itself. One plant, one rock, one drop of water, one gust of air, one animal, all combined their forces. The animal part that came for each individual human is now called the power or totem animal, because it is the easiest part to reach of the nature forces that create us. So it goes on, and it's super interesting, and I can share it with you if you want. I can send it to you. But to me, that really hit home is that, nature created us. And all the different religions, they all kind of point to that in a certain way. And but I never really felt like that was fully, and to me that was like, okay, nature created me, so that's why I feel this direct connection to go and help it, because there's a ton of work that needs to be done. So some of the methods, does anyone have any questions about that? I feel like I just put that out there about that. I don't know if I can answer any questions about that. Well, I'll just go over a couple of the methods that I kind of put together in my practice. So I just started working with people. I call it coaching. I don't really resonate with that. Some have said I'm like a shaman, and I'm not sure if that's it, because there's so many aspects where, like, what I do is is about connecting with, communicating with nature. So like I would literally, go and talk to a tree, and because I believe that every tree, every rock, it all has a spirit. Every area, has a unique spirit or like a song to it. And so coming into a space, when you talk about Bill Mollison talking about, observing, I think that ultimately the more time you could spend communing with your area that you want to work with and kind of creating this dialogue, that we can really understand what it needs. Part of the journey of coming down back to California was we got in a renovated RV, and we're doing the RV life and living in it. And I was able to travel to farms and homesteads along the way in order to create a database of models of different ways that people are doing it. Different ways that people they're either farming, homesteading, or even being stewards of land, or offering their space up for weddings and different, like, these are all needed things and different models. I think that people can access the pursuit of caring for land in different ways and different titles. So that model, so there's all the different models, and so communing with the nature has been a huge part of my process. And then defining like how we do that. So how do we start that conversation, I guess, is the ultimate thing, right? So we start it with, what do we want? We'll just start with a question. Like, oftentimes in spirituality we're told to affirm something. And we might say, like, I am in harmony with nature. And then what does your subconscious mind say? And I think that's the key that we don't get to learn in all of the self-help stuff, is like how to have that dialogue. So like it's not just about like forcing stuff in, it's about this, process where we go, okay, what do I want? But then how do I create that dialogue? So if I'm a homesteader and I create, everything I need for my family. And then what's the first thing that comes up? What's the first question? The first question, listen, right? Well, I don't really think that I can do that. I think that sounds really hard. I think that I'll starve. I think that, I can't afford to buy land. All these things, all this resistance starts to come up. And so what I found through a process which I've learned, called the abundance alignment technique, is where we can choose an area that we want to focus on and just run all the definitions. Like, what does it mean? Positive, negatives, and just so we can get like a baseline of where we're at in a specific area that we want to master. And then from there, we can kind of pull out the things that we resonate, or create or redefine the definition of what we really want it to be. And then start to, through a series of I can do it real quick. So like if I just do one that, if you say, questions start to come up. And so I'll do like a kinesthetic example of like taking something that I want to define. So I am a homesteader. And then I say, okay, my family's going to starve. So that's like the baseline. And so I'll go, so you breathe it in through a series of where you're touching certain spots in your body to kind of anchor in this information into your body. And then you pant like a dog, and then you listen to your body. And you smile with this information that you've integrated into your body. Because it's not just the blocks in your head. It's actually the blocks are living in our bodies too. So we have to figure out in the dialogue process how to access where these blocks are. And so after that, after you've integrated the information, you tap on the spot where it is, you listen, and then you just go for whatever's next in the dialogue. So I'm a homesteader. Okay, I understand that there's going to be challenges to this. I'm up for the challenge. I feel like I'm up for the challenge and I can do whatever it takes. I can learn the information of permaculture. I can read the books, do whatever it takes. Smile, take in the information, feel the body, tap it, feel it. Okay, good. That feels good. And so then I can start to stack modalities. I'm doing this technique. I can pull out my tuning forks. I can use my tuning fork and kind of feel into that area of the body to kind of move some of this energy, and do the same thing with, communicating with that, if there's an organ in your body that feels that it's stuck or needs movement, I can communicate with that. I can sit down, I'm going to write a letter to my liver. What's wrong, liver? Like, why you feel stuck today? Do you need help? How does this stuckness relate to homesteading? And just like really start to kind of stack some of these modalities as far as, tuning in with tuning forks, or doing the breath work, or dialogue and writing. So I've had a tremendous amount of success, taking this information for myself and creating a new vision for my life by really understanding what I want, and then living in that reality in my consciousness for like an extended period of time, like just doing the work, to where I've had like an effortlessness to get from one stage to the next. So like where I thought it would have taken years and years to kind of get to where I wanted to be, leaving the farm, I thought, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna, I had this concept in my head of like RV steading. We're living in the RV, and I heard of this concept. It's like you can just drive around to farms, because part of my purpose right now is not to like be an owner or a full-on steward of the land, is just to help assist people. And so I met Paul and Lauren, and they're like, hey, why don't you guys come help us? Or just different opportunities start to pop up, as far as and now I had this list of all these things that I wanted. Okay, I want free rent, we could just park our RV on the land and be close to family, be in LA so my wife could work part-time, I could have a part-time income, and boom, seriously, everything on the list plus a couple other things were just done. And it's like a process of manifestation. Yeah, and it all happened, and I was and I had this sense of I had this weird sense of sadness. I was like, what the hell? I got what I wanted. Why do I feel all weird about it? And it's okay, so let me go through the process again, and start doing the work of why do I feel this way, and why is it in my body this way? And so it's a journey, and so I've started this with myself, and I'm putting it out there to help any of you guys to on the journey, to help you define, what kind of relationship do you want to have with land, and what do you want to how do you want to assist in setting free nature, because nature is trapped currently. It's currently being directed by evil influences that we need to take back our power and assert back into this realm and break it free, and then ultimately just break free of this realm. Yeah, and so I appreciate you guys listening, and I'm so glad that we can be in this journey together, because everybody has all the answers. We just need to connect all the pieces together. And so I'm happy to lend my piece of the puzzle, and hit me up if you want to chat more. Thanks so much.